So, what if I told you that one of the most powerful and, yeah, controversial guides to human interaction was actually written way back during the Great Depression? I'm talking about Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, this book has been a cultural touchstone for almost 100 years, but its legacy, well, it's a lot more complicated than you'd think. All right, let's just get right to the heart of it. How how can one single book be a favorite of, say, a legendary investor like Warren Buffett, and at the same time be the playbook for a notorious cult leader like Charles Manson, who used it to manipulate his followers from prison? I mean, that's a huge contradiction, right? And that's the mystery we're really going to unpack here. And if you want to understand its incredible reach, you just have to look at this number. Over 30 million copies sold worldwide. Think about that for a second. This isn't just some bestseller, it's a full-on global phenomenon that's outlasted pretty much every fad and trend you can think of for decades. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pull back the curtain on this iconic book. We'll dive into the timeless secrets that made it so famous, for sure. But, and this is important, we're definitely not going to shy away from the really sharp criticisms and the modern controversies that surround it. Long before we had social media influencers, there was Dale Carnegie. He was kind of the world's original influencer. And really, to get the book, you first have to get the man and the specific moment in time that created this absolute giant of the self-help world. Just look at this timeline. It really shows the book's incredible journey. It all starts in 1936, right in the middle of the Great Depression, where it was like a lifeline of hope for people. Then it gets a refresh in 81, for a new generation. Fast forward to 2011, and Time magazine names it one of the most influential books ever. And today, it's still a global bestseller. That's not just staying power, that's a straight-up cultural phenomenon. Okay, so what are these secrets? What's in this book that has captivated millions of people for so long? Well, let's get right to the core of it all, what Carnegie called his golden rules. And when you look at these rules, what's really amazing is just how simple and, well, intuitive they feel, right? I mean, smile, be a good listener, remember to use someone's name. It sounds like common sense. And that was Carnegie's whole point. He believed the real secret wasn't about trying to be interesting yourself, but about being genuinely interested in other people. In this quote, this gets to a really crucial idea. It's all about a radical shift in perspective. See, Carnegie argued that real persuasion isn't about pushing for what you want, not at all. It's about figuring out what the other person truly desires, and then showing them how your idea helps them get it. He had a great phrase for this, arousing an eager want. And this little story he tells is the perfect illustration. So you have a father, right? And his young son, Tim, absolutely refuses to go to kindergarten. Now, instead of arguing or demanding, the dad just taps into what a little kid might want, which is fun. So the family starts finger painting at home. But they tell Tim he has to go to kindergarten to learn how to do it really well. And just like that, Tim develops that eager want. He can't wait to go to school the next day. The father perfectly aligned his goal with his son's desire. Okay, this is another huge one, a really foundational rule for Carnegie. Criticism is basically useless. He argued it's just a total waste of time. Because, think about it, the second you criticize someone, they immediately get defensive. It just forces them to justify what they did, no matter how wrong they might have been. And to really hammer this point home, Carnegie used some pretty extreme examples. He pointed to guys like the notorious gangster Al Capone and the killer Two-Gun Crawley. And he showed that even they didn't see themselves as villains. Nope, in their own minds, they were actually kind-hearted victims, maybe even public benefactors. And Carnegie's point was simple. If a cold-blooded killer can't see their own faults, what possible chance do you have of making your coworkers see theirs just by criticizing them? So, okay, all this advice sounds pretty practical, right? It makes a lot of sense. But this is where things start to get a lot more complicated. And we have to ask, is this advice, which is almost 100 years old, truly timeless? Or is it maybe a little bit toxic for our modern world? I mean, at its very heart, the book is all about winning people over to your way of thinking. You could call it a masterclass in the art of persuasion. But that raises the big central question that critics have been asking for decades. Is it persuasion or is it just manipulation? Where exactly is that line and when do you cross it? And critics will often point to language just like this. It's a quote from Thomas Carlyle that Carnegie uses, and he seems to really approve of it. But to a modern ear, that phrase, little men, it just sounds incredibly condescending, doesn't it? It feels so dated and hints at a worldview that is really out of step with how we see things today. And some of the critiques get even sharper than that. For instance, one critic points out that the very phrase handle people is, well, morally vague. As he says, slave owners and pharaohs were also experts at handling people to get what they wanted. And that raises a really disturbing question. Are these just techniques, completely disconnected from any kind of moral compass? But the questions don't just stop with the book's philosophy. Nope, they go right to the author himself, and they reveal what some people have called the Carnegie contradiction. And this is where the cracks really start to show. So on one hand, you have Carnegie's principle, don't complain. But then, in the very same book, he shares this scathing internal rant he had about an advertiser. The contrast is just, wow. He goes from preaching empathy to thinking, I'm not interested in what you desire. I am interested in what I desire. It's pretty jarring. And one modern critic really doesn't pull any punches on this. He argues that this rant just rips the mask off, revealing Carnegie's extreme selfishness, arrogance, and vanity. The suggestion is that the man behind the curtain maybe wasn't practicing what he was preaching at all. So, where does all this leave us? I mean, what are we to make of this book? Is it a friendly guide to a better life? Or is it something a little more, well, fraudulent? All right, let's just lay it all out. Let's look at the two sides of the debate. The case for Carnegie is pretty strong, right? It provides practical, actionable tips. It encourages empathy, seeing things from other perspectives. It teaches really valuable social and leadership skills. But the case against it is just as compelling. Critics say the techniques can be super manipulative. The language and examples are definitely dated, and the whole thing can feel morally vague and, yeah, maybe insincere. So, when you boil it all down, maybe the crucial point is this. The book is a tool. A really powerful tool. And just like any tool, say a hammer, you can use it to build something beautiful, or you can use it to tear something down. Its value and its danger isn't in the tool itself. It's in the intention of the person holding it. And maybe that's the reason why both Warren Buffett and Charles Manson found it so useful. And that brings us right back to today, doesn't it? In our world of likes, shares, and followers, where influence is a metric, Carnegie's nearly 100-year-old questions feel more relevant than they've ever been. So I'll leave you with this. What does it really mean to truly influence someone today? What does it mean to win a friend? That's something worth thinking about.